the NCC and telcos. Many of them have said that their revenue or the operational cost has been affected by the devaluation of the naira. Therefore, they want an increment of over 100% in terms of tariff. But the NCC has agreed that they can only increase their tariff by just 50%. And of course, the federal government has backed that decision. We saw the statement coming from the Minister for Finance, coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Auwal Abdullahi, last week, backing the 50% increase. According to him, the inflation has increased. Therefore, telco has the right to increase their tariff for customers. I'm being joined in the studio by someone who is very deep in the sector. Auwal Abdullahi is an IT expert, Chief Revenue Commercial Officer, Backbone Connectivity Network Limited. Glad to have you on Business Daily.
Always my pleasure, Yusuf.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's begin with like this. Let me get your take when you heard about that proposal by telcos to increase their tariff by 100%. What came to your mind?
Well, for me, I've worked directly in the telco space for over 20 years, and it's something that was very much glaringly clear when you hear MTN in their half-year financial reviews, posting negative numbers. When you hear the cry and falls from the likes of Airtel, Glo, and what have you, when you look at exactly the performance in terms of business performance of the likes of Nine Mobile, you don't need any soothsayer to tell you that there's a problem somewhere fundamentally. And truth be told, we need to be very much, attuned with the fact that why should telco be different? You understand? When you talk about the inflation that is biting on the country, what is bringing about the inflation? Inflation simply means increase in the prices of what? Commodities in the market. So what exactly are telcos selling that they will not increase their prices? And the reason being that is not far-fetched. We talked about the devaluation of the currency. We talked about the removal of the subsidy. We talked about so many measures that the federal government has taken as part of economic measures for whatever intent, good or bad, at least. That necessitated and exacerbated the reason why prices of commodities have been increased. Now, we are so happy and lucky to the fact that the telco environment is one of the most regulated, and I think credit goes to NCC and the federal government by extension. Otherwise, by now, it will have been free flow. If we subject it to the forces of demand and supply, obviously everybody understands that communication is key and you must have communication. So, and that's the demand is very high. So if we subject it and they say, okay, on the basis of that, they're going to increase the price based on their demand, certainly it wouldn't be talking about 100%. Maybe we should be talking about 500 or even 1,000 as we have seen in the oil industry. It's something we know is going to come. It's something that the teleco CEOs, Carl Tariola of MTN, have said it in different fora, talking about how they have been beaten by the inflation, by the forex devaluation, by the removal of fuel subsidy, etc. So on the basis of that, obviously we saw it coming, and they have tendered their request to the Ministry of Communication, NCC, and it's been heard of.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You did acknowledge the challenges that telcos are facing. And do you blame that on the operating environment? You alluded to the fact that the exchange rates devaluation, talking about naira devaluation, the subsidy removal, all of them having direct impact on telcos activities as well. But the burden has always been passed to Nigerians who are already overburdened. Do you think doing that at this point in time, don't you think government should have come in by way of giving subsidy to these telcos?
I quite agree with you, and you see, for me, from experience worldwide, if you go to Britain, talking about the British telecoms, if you go to US, you discover that these are advanced country. You go to China, you go to virtually most of this country, you discover that critical infrastructure, critical telecom infrastructures are being provided by government, and such that whichever operator that is coming is going to lease. So from there, the government can decide to give whatever concession in terms of subsidy and what have you too, because most of this infrastructure are infrastructure that you can amortize over a long period of time. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, we have lost that. I thought during Obasanjo, when he was privatizing all the government enterprise, and I thought maybe the focus on the likes of Airtel being a critical service provider will have been to preserve the infrastructure and government to enhance on the infrastructure. By so doing, it will mean that the telecom operators will leverage on the presence of that infrastructure, and then government can provide whatever subsidy or support that they want to provide to this telco. And by so doing, it will just come very handy, and the telco will not be at the preview of increasing price arbitrarily, even though it's not arbitrarily, in all honesty. From my record, I know MTN, they have invested over $20 billion in Nigeria just on infrastructure. So imagine if the government has the infrastructure and MTN will have to lease, that money will have gone to the government. You understand? And then the same thing with Airtel. So all of them, the same thing with Glo. They have invested a huge amount of. Now talking about the likes of IHS, who are more or less like towers infrastructure development company, you could see the amount of money they are spending and what have you, and the multiple taxation here in, here out. So they are really impacting on why the telco are feeling it so hard, and then they have to pass it to the consumer. It's such a natural economic what do you call it, philosophy, that whatever what do you call it, you are producing at a cost. How do you recover that cost to actually have your ROI? You have to do the right pricing. Doing the right pricing, who is going to buy? The consumer. And so the consumer here is not protected, but rather different interests are being protected. Government has protected its own interests. What are government interests? Number one, they want to make money, and they are making much money from the telecos. The teleco currently is contributing double digit of the Nigerian GDP, and that is very significant. The telco currently are one of the biggest employer of labor in the Nigerian economy, and that is very significant. So I thought if there is any industry or sector that requires government to come and protect and ensure they provide, because the services they are providing are essential services, are a must-do services. So government should be there. Even though I'm seeing the effort of the current minister, Tijani, trying to see how he can improve on the infrastructure deficit that we're talking about by providing 90,000 kilometers of fiber connectivity. That will go a long way. But in all honesty, we need government to do more. And for government to do more, they need to realize that at the end of the day, Nigerians are the ones paying the dear price. So it's very key.
Indeed, very key. There you talked about quite a lot of interesting things there. You talk about the services that they provide, but how quality is the service? And in terms of infrastructure, how much of broadband penetration do we have as we speak? I think if you look at regional, if you look at the southwest, southeast, south, northeast, northwest, and of course north central, you discover that the penetration differs.
So when you look at our population density, Nigeria is one country that is projected to have significant population increase of, I don't have the right figure, but it is said that between now to 2030, we should be assuming close to 300 million thereabout. One of the highest population in the world. That's number one.
I think 330 or thereabout.
That's thereabout. Now, looking at that fact, you equally have the issue of what we call the densification of the city, the expansion of the city, rural dislocation, urban congestion. Now, take Abuja for instance. You and I live in Abuja, and we know the way and manner Abuja keep growing astronomically.
Absolutely.
You understand? You need a corresponding telecommunication infrastructure in order to cope with that. And there are many times you see people going to all the telco operators, hey, we're going to build an estate here, can you come? They cannot just come. They have to do the profitability analysis. They have to do the due diligence. They have to realize for every mass that they're going to deploy, which is going to cost them X amount of money, hundreds of millions. You understand? The population there can be able to take care of that mass.
The safety is also important as well.
I'm coming to security, which is a very, very big challenge that is bedeviling the entire telecom infrastructure. So for any telecom operator to put, they are not charity organization, they are not government, and that's why telecom infrastructure should be, you understand, spearheaded by government investment rather than leaving the telecom to be doing everything for themselves. So if there is a community here, they need communication. As much as the telecom wants the money of that community, wants them to patronize their services, they are going to do it at a cost. And that cost, which is going to be like a kind of capital expenditure to the telecom operator, need to be recouped over a reasonable period. You can't put a telecom infrastructure and you want to recoup over donkey years. No, it has a period through which it's reasonable for you to recover the money. Now, if the population of that, by way of patronizing whatever infrastructure you have put in, cannot recover within that period, you cannot go and do business, because investment in infrastructure by any telecom operator is using investors' money, and they need their return on investment. So that's one fundamental factor. The other factor has to do, like you rightly said, with security. One of the major challenges the telecom operators are facing is that of security. We have seen a situation where people go with crane to as far as Zamfara, to as far as Waterview, in order to uproot an entire generator. That generator is serving that community. That generator is serving that BTS that is serving that community. And once you take it off, in the absence of light, they don't have communication. Absolutely. Now here come the issue of bandits. Somebody has hinted them, or by their intelligence, they understand the critical nature of infrastructure, telecom infrastructure. And what do? Even recently, as of last week, there was a serious vandalization of telecom infrastructure. Maiduguri was subjected to almost zero communication for a very long time, some of the villages, simply because of insecurity. And then here come another pretty challenge. Individually, people are posing threat to telecom infrastructure. Talk about the landlord case and what have you. You see landlord, and even court sometimes, they don't even help matter as much as the court are there for everybody. But you see sometimes they take a decision without recourse or without understanding the implication of that decision on a telecom infrastructure. And no wonder we saw that the Office of the National Security Advisor has made it a policy that telecom infrastructure are national and critical security asset, and they should not be touched. But come to think of it, today, no sector record high rate of vandalization of their infrastructure like the telecom infrastructure. On daily basis, they suffer that. And who does that? More than 60% is attributed to what do you call it, construction companies, simply because they are not guided. So government also need to come into that to make it a policy. Any infrastructure, any construction company that vandalizes fiber or telecom infrastructure, you understand, will be meant to pay. Maybe that can reduce. Otherwise, on a daily basis, and that cannot be said without looking at, okay, so the effect of that, or the resultant effect of that, it means that the quality of service is what is impaired. There's no way you damage a fiber linking Lagos to the north and you expect quality of service. Obviously, it's going to affect even the entire the calls. So that has been a lot of challenges facing
this industry. Do you think NCC has failed in its regulatory oversight? Because I know about the quality of service regulation that was introduced as of September last year. Do you think they're actually carrying out that function properly?
To say NCC have failed is not fair on their side for me. And truth be told, without NCC, there are many operators that will really decide to cut corners. But I think thanks to NCC, they are doing what they are supposed to do very right. You and I witnessed how NCC landed a serious fine on MTN for breaching on one or two of their, what do you call it, regulatory policy. So that's to tell you NCC are doing their work. However, there is no way NCC could regulate outside an environment to which they live. NCC are privy to all the information, all the challenges bedeviling the telecom operators. One of it I have told you. Number one, are you aware that the telecom operators are the highest consumer of diesel in the country?
True.
So the question is, even if they are going to seek an alternative power supply, which everybody will be clamoring, is being faced by security challenges. You go and put solar panel, it's been removed. Somebody has taken it to his home, or maybe selling them. They deploy copper. Those days of deploying copper is being removed. Somebody is already burning it, turning it into something. Even fiber now that is supposed to be not usable by anybody once caught, but then people go there and vandalize it for reason best known to them. So there's no way you continue to face this threat. You're as an operator, and then regulator come and say, oh, you must provide this X quality percentage of of services or coverage. So they go hand in hand. As much as possible, the government need to help. They are trying. There are instances in places like Kebbi, Zamfara, and what have you, where the telco operators, for their usual operations and maintenance, they have to be going with military security guards. You understand? It shouldn't be so. You understand? So once you begin to have this kind of problem, light issue is there, insecurity is there, vandalization is there, construction company cutting fiber here and there are too many. And then obviously the only thing, if we can say, is for the regulator to even sub-pedal to see how they can make people, these operators work pretty well. I think we should be thanking them. Despite this tumultuous kind of situation, yet they are trying to provide the services. First of all, we have it. Secondly, they are providing the services in a relatively quality manner. That's we need to. And then in terms of coverage, you asked me that question. And I think for fairness, they are almost like around 90% of covering the entire nation. You understand? However, infrastructure differs. There's a 2G, there's a 3G, there's a 4G, even the 5G. There are still some countries in Africa, it is now they're experiencing 4G. But in Nigeria, we've been in with 4G for almost like 6-7 years now. Absolutely. And then we've been with 5G for almost like 3 years now. That's to tell you, our telecom operators are doing what they are supposed to do in making sure they put the right investment to provide us with the quality service and experience that we need.
Indeed, you talked about them doing so much despite the challenges that you have highlighted that they are indeed facing. Do you see Nigeria as a big market? Of course, when you're facing challenges, what some business owners do is to move their business out of that space. But despite these challenges, we see some of these, especially the foreign telcos operators, we see them still operating in Nigerian market. Do you think they see Nigeria as a viable market where they are making quite a lot of profit that they are not really willing to leave?
So, number one, that is an assumption to say maybe it's because they see Nigeria is a viable market. Nigeria has one of the most turbulent market, as promising as it is. Turbulence in the sense that once you have your, your currency is not as stable as expected. It poses a great challenge to any operator, whether in the telecom space, whether in whatever space that you're talking about. And this was one of the singular reasons why the telecom operators posted a huge amount of loss last year. MTN posted over 500 billion loss.
Exactly. But they are gradually recovering.
It's a worrisome. They are recovering simply because of two factors which we are going to talk about. You understand? The same thing with Airtel. So there's nobody that will tell you that I will remain in this business for as long as possible, and if the economy is not improving and what have you. But like I told you, the country is hugely indebted to them. Reason number one, they have invested huge amount of money in billions of dollars. This infrastructure, this investment is on infrastructure. They are yet to recover it. Their recovery, period for this kind of investment is over between 25 to 30 years. It's yet to be recovered. That's number one. Number two, you look at the fact that the kind of services they are providing, they are critical services. Sure. Many people don't understand. All they see when they hear MTN, Glo, and what have you, it's a GSM company. No, beyond that, they provide the fixed services. Virtually most, or if not 100% of all the commercial banks are sitting on telecom infrastructure. Virtually all the enterprise that you can talk about, they are sitting on telecom infrastructure. Today, if you have internet in your house, you are working, it's telecom infrastructure and so many. So that critical and the essentiality of that kind of service begets that you hardly want to just take a decision and say, I want to leave. because it's not. Because wherever you are going, you almost have to start almost at scratch. And then secondly, ever ask yourself or ever wonder why, okay, so since the advent of MTN, Glo, Airtel, and now the struggle Nine Mobile, do you hear of any telco coming? Why? Because it requires huge amount of investment. And you can't invest in this kind of turbulent situation where the economic realities, has already explained to you that you cannot come. So sometimes the devil is worth more than the angel you don't know. So they have to stay, hoping that it will get better. And I'm so particularly happy that the government, has answered their call, but not in totality to say, okay, yes, we agree for 50% increase in the tariff. Nigerians might not want it. Nigerians will not be happy. I particularly am not happy, but however, we have to feel for them. The question is that why should everybody be increasing their price of products and services commensurate to the economic realities, the hyperinflation? You understand that we are talking about, and you want to continue to enjoy the telecom services, you understand,
at the same rate,
at almost the same rate it was about 10, 11 years ago. And meanwhile, you want quality services and you want them to be everywhere. So these are function of their performance in terms of financial positive performance. It's a function of quality of service. It's a function of coverage. We've just talked about them investing almost like $360 million in order to improve the coverage of 4G. We all know what 4G is capable of doing in terms of connectivity, in terms of quality of calls, in terms of data. For them to effectively do that, you understand, to achieve that 90-something% coverage, they need to invest this $360 million. That's roughly half a trillion.
That's about over 500 billion naira. You talked about the factors responsible to recovery of some telcos losses that were recorded last year. So you mentioned some factors as to why they are beginning to have gradual recovery. I saw MTN posting about 115% profit after tax.
Yeah, so truth be told, when you look at it, is that the relatively stability of the naira that we have, you understand, has helped in posting this kind of performance. That's number one. Number two, also, the price hack, even though it's just something that is just here, but you discover that it's going to help a lot, because it is projected that currently the total revenue of the telecom operators is about 4.6 trillion. And with the hike, it is believed that they are going to, at least, it's going to take them up to about 6.3 trillion, which will make them a bit more profitable. But up to the end of last year, you understand, no telecom operator has posted any profit. Though I was surprised when you say MTN said, okay, they have, you understand, posted maybe a revenue growth.
A revenue growth.
Yeah, yes. So that's a revenue growth, but not profit, obviously. So yeah, there could be a revenue growth, you understand, which shows that they have done a lot of work internally in terms of trying to make sure that they bring more customers on their kitty. You remember that I think it was early part of this year, or I think towards the last part of the quarter of last year, NCC conducted a very forensic audit on all the telco, where it was very clear that the likes of Glo, Airtel, and even MTN suffered in terms of the actual number of subscribers that generate money for them. But over time, the likes of MTN, Airtel have done one or two things, even Glo, to improve of that. So when you do that, you will see your revenue growing, you understand. But at the end of the day, by the time you put all the capex and other opex part of it, you will tell whether you are really making money or you are not making money. But as it is from the MTN financial performance last year, it was very clear that they made some losses rather than profit.
Indeed, but they are one of the investors darling now on the stock market. Now a lot of investors actually going towards MTN in recent time. Well, let's look at the pushback now from subscribers. National Association of Telecom Subscribers are against this tariff hike. According to them, before the NCC did announce a 50%, they had a stakeholders meeting, and what they proposed was just a 10% increase. But they were, according to them, they were taken aback when the 50% increase was approved by NCC. There's a pushback from them. NLC is also calling for the suspension of tariff hike. What do you make of that?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Let me. You will cut
No
this bar.
Yes.
Because I'm beginning to.
All right. Just.
This video.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I can see it like this, right?
Okay.
Okay, so I think the Nigerian Constitution has made provision for everybody's right. So the NLC and other what I would call pressure groups, understand, they have the right to advocate for their own yearnings. It's very okay. And I think maybe their protest is also targeting at government, for government to listen to them, you understand. But truth be told, like I rightly said from the beginning, should we allow our telco operators to wallow in losses and then tomorrow we wake up, they are on extinction, we don't have any telecom infrastructure? The answer is technically no. In fact, when you look at it, we are going into cashless society. Tactically, the government is bringing that, is re-engineering that, because we understand that it's going to bring sanity to the country, especially our financial process entirely. Now, the telcos are the 100% supporting that. If government is not even helping them to ensure that they are profitable, then virtually all the yearnings and aspirations of the government in terms of achieving financial inclusion, achieving paperless or cashless society is going to be useless. They're not going to achieve it. So the need for the government to make sure that the telco remain profitable is very sacrosanct. That's number one. Number two, government should listen to the people by helping in areas of making sure that taxes that are not necessary on telecoms and telecom infrastructures should be removed, because it's one of the things that is adding up to their cost of operations. So if government really want to help the masses, government want to help the people, want to listen to the people, yes, by the time you reduce all this, you can justifiably say that, okay, teleco, I'm not increasing 50% to you, but rather I'm increasing 10, 15 thereabout, and which in turn, you are really doing it for your people. As we are talking about, you understand, and that's exactly my worry with even the way government are going about aggressively looking for money. Revenue collection is good, but sourcing the revenue, you understand, not from a collection point of view, but from identifying every nooks and crannies, is worrisome from an economic perspective. Right now, you have introduced the coal taxes. On who? It's on the user, the end user. And these are Nigerian citizens. And these are things that we should even be clamoring to tell government, please help us remove that. It's not necessary. Because if you remove that tax, you understand, it's also going to help. And then also, today, if telecoms decide to buy equipment that they need to use in order to provide quality coverage and what have you, what then happens? There are taxes on those equipment. Government remove them. If they remove them, certainly you will see that the cost on the teleco, both from an operating point of view and then from a capex, you understand, it's going to significantly go down. And then they are also human. They are Nigerians. As much as they want to make money, they also feel. And then there's a competitive pricing. Even if Teleco A wants to make as much money, remember, when they came, we all had the experience where, in fact, you have to buy what we call the super booster, 2,500 that will reduce your current. Do we have the booster now? But the answer is no. So that's what competition does. So I think it's okay for NLC to channel their energy, to channel their call on federal government to see whatever they can do to bring succor and relief to the Nigerian citizen, because truth be told, Nigerians are shouldering a lot.
Absolutely.
A lot,
honestly. Yeah. Let's look at telco's business model. Do you think it should be reviewed? It seems to be operating the same business model since they came into Nigeria.
So I think maybe you need to help me when you say business model for me, from where
maybe
I'm coming.
Probably to suit the environment that they operate.
So when you say business model for me, it encompasses a lot of things, So I don't know what business model the telco are operating other than the very simple first past the poll model, which is you invest, you make your money. They are not, I said it, they are not charity organization. They are not investing for investment's sake. If anybody is going to do that, you understand, should be the government, you understand. But I think, truth be told, for them to be investing such capex and then spreading the recovery over a lengthy period of time in itself, I think is humane. You understand? Consider somebody, you know, putting as much as 1 billion, because when I was checking from my archives and I saw that, they need to spend $1 billion annually in order to provide quality coverage, you understand, and quality service to Nigerians. Now, imagine that $1 billion if it were to be spent by government. You understand? Obviously, you should not expect the telecom operator to start clamoring for price hike. But because they are the ones spending the money, and this money they have to borrow it, and they are borrowing it at an interest from commercial banks. You know, you should expect that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's look at looking at the patronizing local content. We have the likes of Globacom, which is I think 100% Nigeria, and so many others that are not really so popular. What do you think government can support some of these local telcos operators by way of, maybe we talked about it before, give them incentives like subsidy for them to be able to stay in business?
So let me tell you the truth, and I think I have a different perspective and understanding when it comes to local content. You know, there are areas where you don't talk about local content. You understand? You talk about quality of service, and then you talk about at least other factors such as whether they are employing Nigerians, whether Nigeria is benefiting, etc., and what have you. So let me give you my own perspective. Local content in telecoms, and I think it was introduced during Buhari. The whole idea was not about looking at it from an operator point of view, but rather it was looked at from content, as in, for example, solutions that addresses telecommunication needs. So take, for instance, there was a time the president, then Buhari, was in Katsina, and one of the major challenge that the people in Northwest were facing has to do with cattle rustling. And the president challenged the telecom operators, could we have a solution that addresses that? And then the answer, MTN specifically partner with a local solution provider to come up with a chip, they call it AIMS, Animal Identification and Management System. That chip is biodegradable. You insert it into the car. It tells you who owns the cow, where is this cow coming from, and where is it going. If government have embraced that wholeheartedly, by now it will address a lot of cattle wrestling issues and what have you. So that's fundamentally number one. We have content creators now. They are being supported by telecom operators locally, and they are making their money. So that's what, for me, I see. But if you talked about local content from an operator point of view, so it will be a very difficult situation between the chicken and the hen, the egg, which one comes first. If you talked about Glo, check the composition of Glo top management staff. Almost 70% of them, they are not Nigeria. But when you look at MTN, more than 90% of them, they are Nigerians. When you look at Airtel, they also have the same, structure. And then by the time you look at it, all the investment MTN is doing, Airtel is doing, is nowhere in anywhere close to South Africa, but rather is in Nigeria. In fact, the investment MTN is doing in Nigeria is much more than the one they are currently doing in South Africa. You understand? So, who is benefiting from the infrastructure? It's MTN. Currently, MTN is the highest revenue contributor to FIRS, paying over and above 570 billion. Tell me any local operator that is paying close to that. Not even Dangote that has his group. You understand? So I think we need to look at it from that lenses rather than looking at it from, oh, this one belongs to me. So the one that belongs to you is not even ready, you understand, to comply with regulator. Go to NCC, who is the most compliant among all of them. You will be shocked.
All right. All right. Let's look at issue around the issue of revenue that you talked about. Probably one of the reasons why the federal government is backing them backing telcos seriously, but they need to also consider Nigerians as well, which is very, very important. Let's look at the comparative analysis now between the prices that we pay here, or the tariff we pay here, and what is being paid in other African countries. Let's take West Africa, for example. We're talking about Togo, we're talking about Ghana, where they have, some of them have different telcos operators. Some you also use some of the one that we use here as well. If you go to Ghana, you see MTN, you see Glo, and so many of them. Let's look at the price comparatively. Are we at the advantage in regards to when you compare us to the rest of Africa countries?
By far, we're even better off. We're even better off when you look at it in terms of the cost. So I don't have the cost in up here, but I can tell you we are better off. All you need to do, you break all this cost into dollar. You will discover that we are charging penny, not even dollars. But when you go to all those locations, because of the strength of their currency, take for instance South Africa, the rand is almost like 30-something times, more powerful than Nigerian currency. So whatever you are charging in South Africa, by the time you break it into dollar, if you come here, you cannot even buy the services. So that is exactly the lenses that we need to be looking at all these things. It's not about any other country when you look at it from the currency point of view, oh, they are charging. No. Break it into dollar. You will know that you are almost getting it almost handy and free. You understand? But that's one side. Can we get it better? The answer is yes. You and I know that 2 years ago, the price of a carton of Indomie is how much? It's around 4,000 plus, right? But today, you need 19,000 to buy that carton, which means the Naira had lost its value by what percentage? Over and above 63%.
Absolutely.
So when you look at it, you discover that the same 11 Naira that you are paying 2 years back, that the telecom operators are saying we are okay. You understand? If truth be told, we should not be talking about paying that 11 Naira. We should be talking about paying, you understand, almost like 100 Naira to a call. You understand? So when you look at it, the 50% increment, on one side, you understand, government has only made attempt to respond to the operators. On the other side, government is also trying to really appease the Nigerian masses by not increasing it proportionate to the economic realities.
Exactly. All right. I must thank you, Auwal Abdullahi. Quite a very extensive discussion we're having here. And of course, a lot of people have been educated. I'm sure a lot of my viewers also have learned quite a whole lot from your contribution on the show. So I must thank you, Auwal Abdullahi, IT expert. You have been in the telecom industry for over 20 years. Of course, it actually shows in what you actually giving us, what you have given us this morning. Is the Chief Revenue and Commercial Officer, Backbone Connectivity Network. Must thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. It's a pleasure.
All right. With that is a wrap on the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Yusuf Akubu.